Abuja fell silent at night, the glass walls of Zenith Towers shimmered like a galaxy. Inside, Amara Okafor, mop in hand and earbuds crackling with worn-out melodies, became someone else. The marble floors were her stage, the reflections her audience. She danced with quiet abandon, not for fame, not for anyone, but because movement was the only way her heart remembered joy. By day she was invisible, a cleaner with tired eyes, and a uniform 2 sizes too big. But when the offices emptied and the corridors echoed with her favorite songs, Amara's world transformed. She twirled among filing cabinets, slid past the boardroom glass, and laughed softly to herself when her shadow followed like a devoted fan. Her body told stories words couldn't carry, of hunger, of loss, of unbroken spirit. Across the street, from the penthouse of Adeyemi Technologies, Ezekiel Adeyemi watched her through his office window. His nights were long, filled with investor calls and silence that no wealth could cure. Then one evening, during a pause in a board meeting, he saw her, a young woman, dancing alone with a mop and a broken smile. There was nothing professional about it, yet everything human. It caught him off guard. Each night after, he stayed later than necessary. The girl returned graceful, untrained, free. Her movements had rhythm, pain, and release. To him, she wasn't cleaning, she was surviving. Something in him stirred. Ezekiel had built his empire on logic and precision. Yet here was chaos, beautiful and alive, and he couldn't look away. Down below, Amara finished her shift, sweat glistening on her forehead as she hummed into the night air. The guards greeted her kindly. She smiled, unaware that her quiet rebellion had already found an audience in the clouds. Because sometimes destiny doesn't knock, it watches. And on that lonely night in Maitama, a billionaire's world began to crack open, not from power, but from the rhythm of a janitor's heart. For days, Ezekiel Adeyemi couldn't shake the image of the girl who danced in silence. In a world obsessed with metrics and control, she was pure spontaneity, a reminder of something real. He found himself looking toward the same floor every night, waiting for her to appear as the city lights blurred into constellations of glass and steel. He told himself it was curiosity, nothing more. Yet when curiosity keeps you up past midnight, it becomes something else. Find out who she is, he finally told Tunde Bello, his longtime assistant. Tunde blinked in surprise. The cleaner? Yes, Ezekiel said quietly. The one who dances when no one's watching. Within hours, Tunde returned with a simple report. Name, Amara Okafor. Age, 24. Background. Lost her mother to illness, no father in record, lives in Garki with 2 roommates, works 2 cleaning jobs. Ezekiel read the details twice, then closed the file, as if afraid it might change him. The next morning, Amara received a message from her supervisor. She'd been promoted to the executive floor of Zenith Towers. It paid a little more, but came with stricter rules. She was both excited and terrified. She ironed her uniform 3 times, tied her hair back neatly, and whispered a prayer her mother once taught her. Let my work be seen by the right eyes. That evening, when she entered the 45th floor, she froze. Everything shimmered, glass walls, silver fixtures, a scent of luxury that almost felt sacred. And there, sitting casually on the couch, in a black sweater instead of a suit, was Ezekiel Adeyemi. You clean well, he said, his voice steady but strangely warm. Amara startled. Oh, I didn't know anyone was still here. I prefer working late, he replied. You move with rhythm. even when you mop. She blushed, unsure if he was mocking her or paying a compliment. It helps me stay awake, sir. Then don't stop, he murmured, eyes following the quiet grace in her hands. When she left that night, Ezekiel remained in the dim light. Feeling something unfamiliar tug at him, he ordered a small black box wrapped in gold ribbon to be sent to her locker. Inside a note read, "For the girl who turns work into art, don't stop dancing." Amara's breath caught when she found it. No name, no explanation, just a gift and a message that made her heart flutter. And that night, under the soft hum of city light, she danced again this time, not just to escape, but to be seen, because somewhere in the glass towers above, someone finally was. The next few nights glowed brighter for Amara Okafor. She cleaned the 45th floor of Zenith Towers as if her heart had found a secret rhythm. The mysterious gift, the sleek earbuds, and the note that whispered, "Don't stop dancing," had ignited something deep within her. Each step she took across the marble felt lighter, freer, alive. And she wasn't alone anymore. Hidden behind the tinted glass of his office, Ezekiel Adeyemi watched quietly. He didn't know what he sought: inspiration, maybe redemption, but watching her move reminded him that not all beauty could be bought. Yet where beauty blooms, envy often lurks. On the 42nd floor, Bianca Ogunleye, one of Ezekiel's junior managers, had started noticing things. The CEO was staying later than usual. His lights burned long past midnight. His gaze, once fixed on charts and profits, now drifted across the skyline toward the cleaner. Whispers began to spread. "The boss keeps the janitor on his floor now. He's been acting strange lately." Bianca's curiosity sharpened into resentment. She had worked tirelessly for years to be noticed, but Ezekiel never once looked her way, and now a girl with a mop had his attention? That night, when the offices emptied, Bianca lingered in the shadows, phone in hand. Through the glass she saw Amara alone, dancing, lost in her own melody. Her body swayed gently, her reflection merging with the city lights like art come to life. Bianca's lips curled. "Let's see how long your little fairy tale lasts," she whispered, pressing record. The next morning, Abuja woke up to a cruel headline splashed across social media. "Cleaner seduces billionaire CEO, late-night dances in his office caught on camera." The video spread like wildfire. Laughter, mockery, judgment. In a matter of hours, Amara's name became a joke. She entered the building unaware, smiling faintly, only to meet stares sharper than knives. Some whispered, others laughed openly. Her knees wobbled, her throat tightened. She rushed into the restroom, locking herself in a stall. Tears fell freely, silent and raw. By noon, Ezekiel had seen the video. His jaw clenched as fury surged through him. He ordered his legal team to take it down from every platform, but the internet had already made its verdict. For the first time in his life, he realized money couldn't control the narrative, not when cruelty was the currency of gossip. And somewhere deep inside Zenith Towers, Amara's music went silent. The girl who danced to heal now sat alone in the dark, wondering if she would ever find the courage to move again. Because in a world that mocks what it doesn't understand, innocence often pays the price for simply being seen. The world had changed overnight for Amara Okafor. What had once been her sanctuary, the silent moonlit floors of Zenith Towers, now felt like a battlefield of whispers. Every step echoed with humiliation. Every gaze burned with judgment. She stopped wearing her earbuds. She stopped humming. She stopped dancing. When she mopped now, her movements were stiff, mechanical, as if each stroke of the mop was a punishment for believing she could be free. But somewhere on the same floor, Ezekiel Adeyemi was also changing. The calm, calculated man who once thrived on control now felt the sting of chaos. His legal team couldn't erase the video, and no amount of PR spin could stop the world from laughing at the girl he admired. And it wasn't just guilt, it was heartbreak. That evening, Amara's supervisor approached her with a folded note. "You've been personally requested," he said, eyes a little unsure. "By who?" she asked softly. He hesitated. "By the CEO." Her heart stuttered. "Mr. Adeyemi?" He nodded. "His office now." When Amara stepped into the executive suite, she found Ezekiel standing by the wide glass window, hands clasped behind his back, the skyline glittering behind him. The air between them felt heavy, fragile. "You stop dancing," he said quietly, still facing the city. Amara froze. Her voice trembled. It stopped feeling safe, like someone was watching me. He turned to face her, then eyes dark, filled with something human and raw. Someone was. Her breath caught. "You?" "Yes." The single word hung in the air like thunder. "I saw you that first night. I saw a girl who moved like her soul was her only instrument, and I couldn't look away." Tears welled in her eyes, confusion, fear, disbelief. "You were the one who left the note," she whispered. "I was," he admitted softly. "Not to toy with you, I saw beauty where no one else was looking. You reminded me of everything I'd forgotten about being alive." Amara's throat tightened. "You're the CEO, and I'm just a cleaner." Ezekiel stepped closer, but his voice remained gentle. "You're the only person in this building who doesn't wear a mask." Silence. Then a trembling whisper escaped her lips. "You shouldn't have watched me." "I know," he said, eyes soft with regret. "But watching you reminded me that there's more to life than power and perfection." The room fell silent again, but this time it wasn't awkward. It was fragile, sacred, real. When she finally turned to leave, her eyes glistened with tears she couldn't name. For the first time, two worlds, one polished, one invisible, had collided not in scandal, but in truth. And though Amara didn't say a word, Ezekiel knew. The walls between them had begun to crack. The air inside Zenith Towers had shifted. Rumors now danced faster than Amara ever could. The once invisible cleaner had become the building's obsession, a mystery wrapped in gossip. Whispers followed her like shadows. "She's the CEO's favorite. Did you see how he looks at her? She planned this all along." Each word cut deeper than the last. Ezekiel Adeyemi, meanwhile, could no longer hide his emotions behind meetings and data charts. He found himself distracted, his thoughts constantly pulling toward her. When he passed her in the corridor, his composure faltered. There was something about her humility, the quiet strength in her eyes that undid him completely. But not everyone saw it as something pure. Bianca Ogunli, the ambitious manager who had leaked the first video, seethed as she watched Ezekiel defend Amara. Her jealousy festered into malice. She had lost her chance at recognition, and she wasn't about to watch a cleaner climb where she had crawled. Late one evening, Bianca trailed Amara out of the building, her heels clicking softly against the pavement. Amara walked alone under the dim street lights, clutching her small handbag and humming faintly, trying to find courage in music again. Bianca's phone camera followed from a distance, snapping pictures of her entering the nearby park where, by chance, Ezekiel had asked to meet. He was sitting on a bench, waiting. The glow from his wristwatch flickered faintly as Amara approached. "You shouldn't have called me here," she said softly. "I had to," he replied. "I needed to see you away from all the noise." Bianca, hidden behind a parked car, clicked photo after photo, careful to capture the closeness, the tenderness. To the world, it would look like a secret affair. The next morning, the images exploded online. CEO of Adeyemi Tech caught in late-night meeting with cleaner romance confirmed. Corporate scandal deepens. Love or manipulation? The company's reputation trembled. Reporters waited outside the building. Employees whispered louder, and Amara's life crumbled once more. Her phone buzzed with messages she couldn't bear to read. Home wrecker, gold digger, seductress. When she arrived at work, heads turned. Laughter echoed behind her. She didn't cry, she simply lowered her gaze, clutching her mop handle like a shield. In his office, Ezekiel read the headlines in silence. He didn't care about the company's image anymore. He cared about her, the girl who only ever wanted to dance. He had once told himself he could keep his heart hidden behind glass walls. But now, those walls were shattering, and the world was watching every crack. By the next morning, Zenith Towers no longer hummed with quiet elegance, it vibrated with scandal. Reporters crowded outside the glass building, flashing cameras at anyone in uniform. Online, hashtags twisted the truth, turning Amara Okafor from a woman into a story people consumed for entertainment. She moved through the lobby like a ghost, clutching her cleaning supplies, pretending not to hear the laughter. She played him well. "I told you she's not innocent." Each whisper was a dagger, every stare a reminder that the world could destroy someone with nothing but curiosity and envy. Meanwhile, Ezekiel Adeyemi sat in his office motionless. The same city that once bowed to his brilliance now mocked his silence. Investors called for explanations. Board members demanded damage control. But Ezekiel's mind was elsewhere, on the girl who once turned her pain into art. Tunde, his assistant, entered quietly. "Sir, the press is outside. They're tearing her apart." Ezekiel stood, his decision already made. "Then I'll face them." Within the hour, a podium was set up in the grand lobby. Reporters swarmed as the billionaire CEO stepped forward, no entourage, no bodyguards, no script. Just a man ready to speak truth in a world obsessed with scandal. "I'm not here to talk about business," Ezekiel began, his voice calm but edged with fire. "I'm here to talk about a woman whose only mistake was dancing when she thought no one was watching." The murmurs in the crowd fell to silence. "She reminded me that joy doesn't need permission, that humanity can live even in a glass tower. You can mock me, but you will not shame her. She deserves respect, not ridicule." Somewhere down the corridor, hidden behind a maintenance door, Amara watched the live stream on her cracked phone. Her hand covered her mouth as tears blurred the screen. He wasn't defending himself, he was defending her. For the first time since the nightmare began, she felt seen again, not as a rumor, not as a cleaner, but as a person. When the press conference ended, Ezekiel walked out of the building in silence. But the internet, the same monster that had torn her down, began to shift. The clip of his speech spread faster than the scandal ever did. Comments changed. Tone softened. The world, it seemed, had remembered how to feel. And in that moment, amid headlines and flashing lights, something powerful happened. Not the rise of a billionaire's reputation, but the quiet redemption of a girl who dared to dance in the dark. In the weeks that followed, Amara Okafor lived between silence and survival. The world had finally stopped mocking her, but quiet didn't mean peace. She avoided the 45th floor, choosing instead to clean the lower levels. Far from curious eyes, her music stayed off. Her dancing stopped completely. Yet, Ezekiel Adeyemi hadn't forgotten. Every time he passed the marble corridor where she once danced, it felt emptier the same way the city skyline felt without her rhythm. He had rebuilt corporations, but he couldn't rebuild her trust. One Friday evening, he asked Tunde Bello to make arrangements quietly, personally. No reporters, no press, just her, he said. 2 nights later, Amara received a message delivered through her supervisor. You're needed for a cleaning job at a private location, one-time task. She arrived cautiously, heart pounding, expecting another office floor. But when the car stopped and the driver opened the door, she froze. They were outside an old building in Woo's 2, its cracked walls painted over with fresh white. A faint light glowed through dusty glass windows. Ezekiel stepped out from the shadows, dressed simply, holding a small key. You used to dance here, he said softly. Her breath caught. How did you? I asked around. Someone mentioned a girl who used to train in a studio until life got in the way. He unlocked the door. Inside, the room smelled faintly of wood polish and new beginnings. Wide mirrors reflected the golden light, and the floor once broken gleamed again. Amara took a hesitant step forward. You fixed it. No, he replied, smiling gently. I restored what was already beautiful. She stood still, tears glistening in her eyes. Why would you do this for me? Because the world tried to silence you, he said, and I want you to remember what it means to move freely again. Soft music began to play her favorite song, the same she once danced to while cleaning. Her hands trembled. Slowly, she slipped off her shoes and stepped onto the polished wood. Then she danced, barefoot, unapologetic, not for him, not for the world, but for herself. Ezekiel watched quietly, arms folded, heart swelling. Each spin, each movement, each breath was a declaration of healing. By the time she stopped, the room was silent, yet alive. When their eyes met, he whispered, You've brought life back into this place, and into me. Amara smiled faintly through her tears. You gave me a reason to start again. And for the first time since the scandal, laughter echoed soft, genuine, unburdened. The girl who once danced in the dark had found her light again, and this time it was hers to keep. For the first time in months, Amara Okafor felt free. The dance studio in Wooze 2 had become her sanctuary, a place where the world's noise couldn't reach her. Every evening, the space filled with laughter and music as she taught children from low-income homes how to move, how to dream, how to breathe through pain. Each child reminded her of herself, once voiceless, now learning to rise. And though the world had stopped mocking her, some ghosts refused to rest. One cloudy afternoon, while sweeping the studio floor after class, Amara heard a knock at the door. She opened it and froze. There he stood, Mr. Okafor, her father, the man who had abandoned her and her mother when rent piled too high and food too little. Time had carved deep lines in his face, but the same hard eyes remained. Amara, he began with a forced smile. So it's true, you're famous now. Her stomach knotted. What do you want? Just to see my daughter. You're doing well. I saw you online, the billionaire, the studio. He chuckled dryly. Guess you don't need your old man anymore. She gripped the broom tighter. You left us to starve. And now you show up because you saw my name on a screen? He frowned. Don't talk to me like that. I'm still your father. Her voice trembled, but not with fear. You stopped being that the day you walked away from Mom when she was sick. Silence. The air grew heavy with years of pain unspoken. Just then a familiar voice broke through. Is everything all right? Ezekiel Adeyemi stepped into the doorway, his presence calm yet firm. He didn't need to ask who the man was. The tension spoke for itself. Mr. Okafor's tone sharpened. Ah, the rich savior himself. I see why she forgot her roots. Ezekiel's jaw tightened. Her roots are strength and grace, not the pain you left her with. For a moment, the older man's facade cracked. Then, muttering under his breath, he turned and left, slamming the door behind him. Amara stood frozen, tears spilling freely now, not of weakness, but release. Ezekiel crossed the room and pulled her gently into his arms. She buried her face in his chest, shaking quietly. I'm sorry, he whispered. You shouldn't have had to face that alone. She shook her head. No, I needed it. I needed to let him go for good. Outside, the clouds began to break, sunlight spilling into the studio through the tall windows. In that light, Amara smiled through her tears. I think I finally understand something, she said softly. Forgiving him isn't for him. It's for me. Ezekiel nodded, brushing a tear from her cheek. Then today you danced again, not with your body, but with your spirit. And in that quiet moment, surrounded by echoes of music and forgiveness, Amara finally felt whole, no longer a girl defined by pain, but a woman reborn through grace. Weeks turned into months, and the rhythm of Amara Okafor's new life beat softly but surely. The studio in Wuse, too, had grown into a haven not just for children, but for adults rediscovering forgotten dreams. Each class ended with smiles, music, and quiet gratitude. She had turned pain into purpose, and for once peace didn't feel like a fantasy. Yet Ezekiel Adeyemi knew something was missing, not from her life, but from theirs. He had stood behind her all this time, quietly cheering her triumphs, funding programs for the children, protecting her name from gossip. But love unspoken can only stay silent for so long. One golden evening he called her and said softly, "Meet me tonight. Dress simply, but wear something that makes you feel like you." Amara laughed nervously. That's not much to go on. You'll understand when you get there, he replied. The driver took her through Maitama's glowing streets until they reached Zenith Towers, the place where everything began. As the elevator doors opened onto the 45th floor, Amara gasped. The entire space shimmered in soft candlelight. The marble gleamed as it had on the night she used to clean it. The city skyline stretched endlessly beyond the glass, a constellation of lights twinkling like witnesses to her story. Ezekiel stood at the center of the room. No suit this time, just a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled and eyes filled with warmth. I brought us back here, he said quietly, because this is where I first saw you, not just with my eyes, but with something deeper. You were dancing alone, unaware that you had already changed my world. Amara's lips trembled. You remembered. I never forgot, he said. And tonight, I don't want to watch from a distance anymore. Soft music began to play the same song from her cleaning nights. He held out his hand. Dance with me, Amara. She hesitated, smiling through tears. Barefoot? He nodded. Ways. They moved slowly across the marble floor, the same place where class once separated them. But tonight, it was just two souls swaying in rhythm, bathed in the light of forgiveness, love, and rebirth. Halfway through the dance, Ezekiel stopped. He reached into his pocket, dropped to one knee, and opened a small velvet box. The world seemed to pause. "Amara Okafor," he said, voice low but steady. "From the first night I saw you dance, I knew you were the only real thing I'd ever known. You didn't try to impress me, you just were. And in being yourself, you changed everything. Will you marry me?" Amara's hands flew to her mouth. Tears streamed down freely, shimmering in the candlelight. "Yes," she whispered, barely able to breathe. "Yes, Ezekiel." He slipped the ring onto her finger, and as they embraced, the city lights reflected around them the girl who once danced for no one, now dancing in the arms of the man who had finally learned how to feel. Because sometimes love doesn't arrive with thunder. It returns quietly to the place where it first learned how to see. The day dawned soft and golden over Abuja, the kind of morning that felt touched by grace. The city moved as always hurried, busy, unaware that somewhere within its calm heart, a story of quiet miracles was reaching its final verse. Amara Okafor stood before a small mirror, inside a white garden tent at Unity Gardens, Jabe. Her gown was simple flowing ivory satin, with sleeves that fluttered like soft wings whenever she moved. No diamonds, no crown, just her mother's silver bracelet resting on her wrist. It was enough. Outside, soft violin notes drifted through the air. The guests' close friends, the children from her studio, a few of Ezekiel's colleagues, filled the open garden with smiles and warmth. Roses bloomed along the path like blessings laid by unseen hands. And there, standing beneath an arch of white flowers, was Ezekiel Adeyemi, the man whose world once revolved around glass walls and profit margins. But today, he stood waiting with nothing but love in his eyes. When Amara stepped out, the world seemed to hush. Every face turned. Even the breeze slowed, carrying her veil gently behind her. As she walked down the aisle, she met Ezekiel's gaze, and the memories flooded them both. The mop and marble floors, the cruel headlines, the night he watched her dance without knowing why his heart ached. All of it had led here to this quiet, holy moment. When she reached him, he took her hands. "You found freedom in the darkest place," he whispered, "and somehow you taught me how to find mine." She smiled through tears, "And you reminded me that being seen doesn't make me small, it makes me whole." The minister began the vows, his voice steady over the soft hum of nature. "Love is not measured by what we have," he said, "but by what we give to make another soul feel safe." As they exchanged rings, a rumble echoed above. The guests looked up. The clouds, thick and silver, began to open, and rain fell softly, almost shyly upon them. But no one ran. No umbrellas, no panic, just laughter, tears, and open hands catching drops of heaven. Amara's veil clung to her shoulders, her gown soaked, her laughter rising above the sound of the rain. Ezekiel leaned in, rain streaming down his face, and kissed her. For a moment, time stopped. It wasn't the grandest wedding. There were no flashing cameras or celebrity guests, just two people standing in the rain, washed clean of judgment, fear, and the weight of the past. And as the thunder softened into applause from the sky, Amara whispered against his lips, "This is perfect." Ezekiel smiled, his voice low and certain, "Because it's real." They stayed there, drenched and radiant, surrounded by laughter and the scent of wet roses, two souls who had learned that love doesn't need an audience. It only needs truth. Morning sunlight spilled softly through the tall windows of the dance studio in Wusei 2. The scent of fresh wood polish mingled with the faint laughter of children warming up for class. The walls that once echoed with silence now pulsed with life drumbeats, sneakers squeaking, voices singing. Amara Okafo. No longer the janitor, no longer the invisible girl, stood at the front of the room, barefoot as always, her hands gently guiding a little boy's steps. "Don't rush," she said with a smile. "Feel the music first, then move." He nodded shyly, and she clapped softly in rhythm until his tiny feet found courage. From the doorway, Ezekiel Adeyemi watched quietly, his usual steel composure replaced with quiet awe. He had seen markets rise and empires crumble, but nothing as miraculous as this. The woman who had once swept floors in the shadows, now shining brighter than the city skyline itself. Over the months, the studio had grown into something more than dance. It had become a refuge. Children from broken homes came here, not just to learn movement, but to rediscover joy. Teenagers found confidence, mothers found healing, and men who had lost their way found peace again through rhythm and community. It wasn't just Amara's dream anymore, it was her legacy. That evening, as the last student left, she tidied the mirrors and placed a bouquet of lilies by the window. Ezekiel entered with 2 cups of tea, setting one beside her. "You know," he said softly, "you've created something extraordinary here." She smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "We both did. You built towers. I just helped them find their heartbeat." They sat together in the quiet glow of dusk, the city humming outside, their hearts steady within. After a moment, Amara reached into her bag and pulled out a small box tied with white ribbon. "Open it," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Ezekiel frowned playfully. "You know I don't like surprises." "This one," she whispered, "you'll like." He untied the ribbon and lifted the lid. Inside, a tiny pair of white baby shoes rested neatly on soft fabric. For a heartbeat, he couldn't speak. Then his eyes lifted to hers wide, glistening. "Amara, are you?" She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "We're going to have a child." Silence. Then laughter, soft, disbelieving, full of joy. Ezekiel pulled her close, his voice breaking against her ear. A child raised on love and music. Months later, under the calm Abuja sky, a little girl toddled across the same studio floor, clapping her hands as her mother danced. Her laughter filled the air like the sweetest melody. And from the doorway, Ezekiel watched them, the 2 souls who had turned his world from glass to gold. Sometimes fairy tales don't begin in palaces. They begin on cold marble floors with a girl, a mop, and a song that refuses to die. Because love, real love, doesn't just change a person. It redeems the world around them.